beautiful people, welcome back to my channel Wake Up Bright, where I share all of the things that help me live each day a little brighter. I'm April Lauren and I'm on a journey to lose 200 pounds. I am about 90 pounds down. I have around 110 pounds to go. And I want to share 7 things that I try to do when I feel myself going off track. So I've been going forward on my journey in this slow, sustainable way for a long time now, and it is not a journey without hiccups. It has not been a journey without big life changes, big life curveballs, and all of the things, and I've continued forward. And I just want to share these things. Maybe they'll be helpful, or maybe it'll just be helpful for me to remind myself what I need to do when I start feeling myself slide. Let's get into it. The first thing that I do and need to do, if I'm not doing, because sometimes doing problem, it's a doing problem. So sometimes I find, even though I know to do these things, I'm not doing them. The first thing that I need to be doing is reminding myself of my whys. It is so easy to get wrapped up in so many things pulling for your attention or that you want to do and forget your actual purpose, like the big why behind what you're trying to do. So I have a list of my whys and I like to review them. I've even thought about writing them down every single day. There is a YouTuber that I like a lot, and she writes her list, her goals out every single day. And I haven't committed to that, but I thought that was a good idea. Nonetheless, when we find ourselves in a dark place, sometimes it's good to sit down with that list and remind ourselves. Now, for me, sometimes this backfires because I'll look at my list and then I will use that list to beat myself up and be like, well, you should have done this. You should be here. You should be doing this and this way. And it's not right. And, if you really wanted these things, you would be doing it differently. And no, that is false. Doing the work, figuring out how to do it in a sustainable way that can be for my life, and overcoming the things that I need to overcome and I need to fix within myself is so important, and I'm worth giving myself the space and time that I need to do those things. And so when I look at my list of whys and it doesn't work. So recently I thought I might be pregnant again. So I had an HSG a few months ago, and I know that I ovulate regularly. My period has been extraordinarily regular. So I ovulate every month. My period's regular. I had this HSG, and so in the back of my mind, I'm like, this is it. Probably gonna get pregnant. I'd like to weigh less, but this is it. It's gonna happen. And then I had my period, and then I had my period, and then the 3rd month, my period was late. It just didn't come, and it didn't come, and it didn't come, and I kept getting excited, and I was getting so excited, and then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna take a pregnancy test, and I'm like, no, you're not gonna take a pregnancy test, because every time you take a pregnancy test, you start your period the next day. So I'm like, you're gonna wait. So I waited, and then I let myself start getting so excited. I was like, okay, I'm going to surprise my husband, and this is how I'm going to do it. And so I'm like, okay, you just need to go take the test. So I did, and it was negative. And I was like, well, maybe it was just too early to test. So just like I'm convincing myself up until the day I started my period. And it was rough. It was rough. And it put me in a very dark place. And looking at my list of whys at the beginning of my list, is to start a family. And with that is to be the healthiest version of myself. I want to live a long and healthy life. I want to prevent being immobile ever again in my life, unless I'm like in my late 90s. I want to be able to move freely. That's so important to me. And so going in a slow way that I can maintain is so important, and I was so destabilized. Looking at my whys just made me feel worse. And a solution to that could have been to move on to my second, to get outside. And I did not get outside. I did not. I I went very inside, and I did still walk my pups, but walking late at night or early in the morning, it's hard to walk them when it's daylight hours and it's so hot. So to number 3, which is performing an act of service. Performing acts of kindness or finding ways to uplift those around us is something that we should do, I think, every day. We should always be looking for a way to love and encourage people around us. And in this particular situation, I just withdrew, and that made that harder. But in times where I feel that way and I step outside of myself in order to uplift someone else, it has the best effect. Finding something kind to do for someone else really can pull you out of a negative spot. And sometimes that doesn't work, but I feel like most of the time it does. Another thing to do if you are in a very negative space is to do an act of self-care. So this could be taking some time to just meditate or pray or take a bath and light a candle or do a face mask or get the sleep that you need. Taking the time to rest and recover in a fitness journey of any kind, and a weight loss journey is a fitness journey, is so important. That's when I find I get the most body composition changes, is when I'm getting really good rest, when I'm taking the time to sleep. And that isn't always possible for everyone. So that's other forms of self-care are also so important. Doing yoga, anything to help rest or restore your body will typically, in my experience for me, help me get right in my mind. Next thing is to work out, and working out is what pulled me out of my funk. It was a solid week of self-loathing and not great choices and just feeling so dark. And I did not want to go do the DECA. I did a video on this a few Wednesdays ago, but showing up and then going through it, it's like every moment, every single second that passed as I was working out, was a point of slight change. And by the time I was done with that workout, I felt so refreshed and so much more myself than I had been in a little over a week. And that was so helpful and so important to me. This is definitely a time where if I would have had bad food in our house, that I would have binged. I have no doubt, that was the mindset. That is where I was at. It is probably the worst in that specific way that I have felt or allowed myself to be since I started my journey. It was very, very rough. And it just kept getting worse every day. And I think that goes back to one of my very first videos, How Did I Get Fat? I listed out triggers and things, and any type of routine change typically throws me off a little bit. I think most people are probably that way. And then also hormonal issues can also spark some pretty intense things in me. I get pretty intense emotions with my period every single month. There's usually a lot of pain, and this period that I had was insane. It's not like I was just in a bad mood. It was doubling over. Ibuprofen didn't help. Midol didn't help. Nothing helped. Hot compress did not help. I was in so much pain, and then I was also in such a bad state of mind. And I think that those things work together. So I digress. This next option or next suggestion that I have, it would have been very helpful in this moment to just be okay, I'm not in a good place. I'm going to take a break. I'm going to allow myself to feel this way for 3 days, and then that's going to be enough. And I mean, we can't always boss ourselves around like that, but sometimes we can. Sometimes it's okay to just waller in those feelings for a little bit. The last thing that I think is important to do, and you could do this with, making a list of things that you're grateful for, a list of your non-scale victories, or a list of things that you're proud of, is looking at where you're at and then breaking up where you need to go. So often I focus on that end goal, and that is so overwhelming, and it's not very helpful for me to do that. And so I find when I am doing the best, I am focusing on one day at a time, and I am living a routine, and it might not be perfect. It might not be my perfect routine or this like a fantasy version of a routine that I have, but it is a routine. And when I am in a groove of focusing on each day and achieving the things that I want to do, I am so much happier and healthier. You're gonna have stumbles. There's going to be roadblocks and things that we have to work around. And thinking about what we need to do before we get there, I think is so important. For me, sitting down and thinking about how I'm going to respond the next time is important, because I didn't do that. This happened to me in September where I was like, maybe I'm pregnant. And then I wasn't, and it was crushing. And then this time I had no plan. I had no plan of, and I had already gone through it. I should have been more responsible for laying out a plan of action for when I am in a highly emotional state and I know I'm going to be extraordinarily disappointed and am going to get dark. Like, I'm going to feel those things when I think that I may be pregnant and I take a pregnancy test. Those 60 seconds take so long and so many things flash, and it's so hard to not let yourself feel excited. So hard for me to not feel excited. And I have a tendency to get overexcited, and then I just get crushed. And having a plan of action is important. So that's kind of, I guess, would say it fits into that last one. Having a plan for specific triggering events or instances, or even just if it's a feeling, like let's say, or you get migraines, like let's say you get migraines regularly and you know that that's going to throw you off. Whatever it is, have a plan of action and break up your goal. Break up your goal. So that way, when you're looking at your list of accomplishments, as you're going through, you've got all of these points where you've already been successful. You just have to keep going forward and keep being successful. And that's another thing that I love so much about the DECA with this, is that without the DECA, I would have continued on that path until I don't know how long, probably until my husband came home. And instead, I did the DECA, and it wasn't just that I did that, but I had such an improvement. So even before I knew how much of an improvement I had, just the movement and starting was so helpful for me. And then beating my previous time by almost 5 minutes was just another point where it's like, I am so grateful. I'm so grateful to be where I'm at. And I'm so grateful that I can continue to go forward, and that I know I'm going to get there. I know we're going to have a family. I know these things are going to happen, and I'm so grateful for that. And like I said, this video, I hope that it may help you or someone, but it also is for me. I need to remind myself to do these things. I needed to remind myself to have a plan of action for things that I can. You can't plan for everything, but the reality is as I continue to lose weight, as we start fertility treatments, I'm probably going to have more bad days. And I need those bad days to not throw me off of my purpose. So having a plan is so important. I'd love to hear what are some things that you do to stay on track or to redirect yourself. Let me know in the comments down below. And if you haven't and you want to follow along on my journey, subscribe, ding the bell, and I will see you next time.